Today, we welcome to our telecast one of the most celebrated political leaders of our time, former Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu. The purpose of this telecast is to introduce America to his latest book, Bibi, which is a moving, sweeping autobiography. One of the most formidable and insightful leaders of our time tells the story of his family, his path to leadership, and his unceasing commitment to defending Israel and securing its future. Welcome to the telecast, Mr. Prime Minister.
It's good to be with you, John, and we have no better friend, and I appreciate not only your friendship, but that of your extraordinary audience. So thank you on behalf of Israel and the Jewish people.
It's good to see you again, sir. For the benefit of our audience, I had the honor of meeting Bibi Netanyahu in 1985 in Houston, trying to convince the Jewish leadership to embrace the revolutionary concept of having a night to honor Israel in that city. And the Prime Minister was at that time serving as Israel's representative in the United Nations. And Prime Minister Netanyahu has been one of the most formidable and courageous political leaders of our time. His bold and brilliant leadership has kept the enemies of Israel on their heels while Israel was flourishing as a nation. Mr. Prime Minister, let's begin by sharing some of your early history when you joined an elite special force outfit of the Israeli Defense Forces known as the unit. You were 22 years of age and you were wounded in combat, leading your team in the rescue of hostages from a hijacked plane. Tell us about that.
Well, we had come back to the unit from a late night exercise on the Dead Sea. There was no one there, except for one guard. And he said, they've all gone to the airport. And I said, why? Well, because some 4 Palestinian terrorists, 2 men, 2 women, hijacked a Belgian aircraft bound for Israel with all the hostages on board. And they said they'd blow up the plane unless we release terrorists jailed in Israel. We rushed to the airport. Moshe Dayan, who was the Israeli defense minister, was negotiating with the terrorists, and he was basically deceiving them, saying that we would prepare the plane for takeoff, bring all these jailed terrorists in view. They were, of course, Israelis, and we 16 mechanics, that is 16 unit soldiers dressed in white overalls of mechanics, would fix the plane. Well, they bought it. And we were about to go into battle, having trained for 30 minutes on Beretta pistols. We couldn't use our normal weapons, which were Kalashnikov assault rifles and Uzi submachine guns, because we blow up the passengers in the plane, and we couldn't hide the weapons. So we put these pistols in our boots. We're all ready to go. And at that moment, my older brother, Yoni, Jonathan, who was senior to me in the unit, he came and he said, and he didn't command a specific team. I was a team commander. He said, I'm going too. And I said, you can't go. Because he said, why not? I said, because I'm going with my soldiers. He said, so we'll both go. And I said, Yoni, what are you saying? You can't put 2 brothers with 16 out of 16 soldiers in confined quarters in a firefight. Think of what would happen if one of us got hurt, if both of us got killed. And at that point, I said, think of mother and father. And at that point, he looked at me and he said to me something I'll never forget. He said, with iron determination, he said, Bibi, my life is my own and my death is my own. And he had said as a teenager, I found this out later, after he died, leading the rescue in Entebbe 4 years later, that he had written that death does not frighten him, because if he would have to give his life for a purpose he believed in, he would do so willingly. So now, faced with this iron determination, we had a disagreement. I said, you're not going and I'm not leaving. And we went to the unit commander and he decided in my favor. And Yoni's stayed behind with Moshe Dayan and Shimon Peres, who was the transport minister at the time. And there's a film clip of the IDF, of the Israeli army, showing him marching back and forth with this frustrated look on his face, a lion cage. Now we're going with a baggage train. 16 soldiers dressed as mechanics. The terrorists had the sorry, the Red Cross check us 100 yards from the airport. They're looking at us from the cockpit. The Red Cross personnel, he was French, frisks me, gets to my boots, and he feels the pistol. He says in French, "Mon Dieu, my God," and I, in my elementary French, I said, "Dieu est grand, God is great." He let us go. Didn't spill the bins. Now we get on top of the plane, and I, as a wing commander, got a wing. There's an entrance through the wing. You bang on the door, and it pops up. And just as we're about to begin, the guy next to me, who was a veteran of the unit that we had snatched from the airport because he was an Air Force guard, airline security guard, and he knew how to use pistols. So he said to me, "Listen, you got to stop the operation." I said, "What do you mean stop the operation?" He said, "Well, look, I flew in from London. The plane was packed. I couldn't get to the bathroom, to the toilet, and I have to go." And I said, what, you have to go now?" He said, "Now." I said, "Big or small?" He said, "Big." I said, "You're kidding." I jumped off the wing, told the commander to stop, got this guy off the plane. He went under the fuselage, relieved himself. Now we're back on the wings, and we're ready to go. And the commander blew the whistle. We stormed into the aircraft. The terrorist right opposite us fired at us. He unfortunately hit a young woman, a young mother, and she slumped forward dead. We burst in. Two of my colleagues got two of these terrorists, but there were two other women, and we know that they could have exploded the plane with explosive charges. So I said to one of the passengers, pointed to a woman. He said, "That's her, one of her," and one of them. And I grabbed her by the hair, and it turned out to be a wig. Grabbed her again by her hair, and I said, "Where are the charges?" And another unit commander, another unit soldier, came rushing towards me with his pistol uncocked, and he cocked, and he said, "Bibi, let me take care of her." And he slapped her on the face, and the bullet was discharged, went through her right into my arm, and it felt like a sledgehammer. But we got all the terrorists, and took only 2 minutes. I was taken off the plane. I lay on the tarmac. A medic gave me some morphine to ease the pain. And I see Yoni, my brother Yoni, running from afar towards me with a terrible look of distress on his face. And as he got closer and closer, he stands on top of me, and he sees this red splatter of blood on my mechanic's overall sleeve. And he looks at me, and this broad grin spreads on his face. And he said, "See, Bibi, I told you not to go."
4 years later, your brother Yoni was killed in Entebbe, Uganda, while leading one of the most daring hostage rescue missions in modern times. Yoni became a legend, and the Jewish day school here in San Antonio is named in his honor. And the world will always remember the Entebbe rescue. Tell us about Yoni and his impact on your life.
Well, he was my extraordinary older brother, and for my younger brother and me, my younger brother Ido and me, he was our North Star. He was guiding us through life's labyrinthine paths, and he served as a model of an example. He didn't have to die to become a legend. He was already known in his life as an outstanding commander, unbelievably intelligent, with not only a warrior, but with the soul of a poet. And he led the unit. I left the army after the Sabina rescue shortly afterwards, and went to study in the United States. He stayed on, became the commander of the unit. And 4 years later, the terrorists thought that, we're not going to land a plane in Israel again. They're not going to do that again. So we'll hijack a plane, and this time we'll land it in the heart of Africa, in Entebbe, Uganda. And there's no way that Israel could do anything about that. Well, they were wrong. And in the dead of night, Yoni and his brave colleagues landed in Entebbe airport, made their way to the old terminal where the hostages were kept. Yoni led the storming party, and he was the only military casualty. All the hostages were rescued except 3 who were killed in the crossfire. And And in his honor, the Rabin government called the Operation Jonathan. But for me and for my parents, this wasn't a day of celebration. Uh, it was a day of tremendous tragedy. And I didn't think that I would, actually, I didn't know if I could live or how I would live. And yet I found in Yoni's example, in his sacrifice, which took place on the July 4th bicentennial of the United States, it was an act of asserting freedom, freedom of free men and women who refused to succumb to harm. And I devoted my life first to mobilizing the free world to a tough stance against international terrorism and primarily the terrorist states that sponsor the terrorists. And then it worked me into political life to become Israel's longest serving prime minister. And once I was asked in an interview, well, how do you want to be remembered? And I said, as the protector of Israel, as someone who devoted his life to ensure the security and prosperity and permanence of the Jewish state.
You have become the longest serving prime minister in Israel's history. When I was in Israel last, I visited with you in your home, and we sat on a white leather couch, and you gripped my right arm, and you made this proclamation: I will become prime minister again. Don't count me out. In your opinion, in your opinion, what are the major foreign policy concerns facing the state of Israel right now?
Well, the first three are easy. It's Iran, Iran, and Iran. You know, this is an Islamist radical regime that chants death to Israel, death to America. They call us the small Satan. They call you the great Satan. And they're trying to develop a nuclear arsenal and the intercontinental ballistic missiles to deliver death, not only to Israel, but the ability to basically blackmail every city in the United States with nuclear tipped ballistic missiles. This is something that will change the history of the world. It's not only a danger to us, it's a danger to America and to all the free world. So I think that my first goal would be to continue the action that I took as prime minister to prevent Iran from getting nuclear weapons. The second thing is to complete the circle of peace around us. I worked with President Trump and adopting a policy not of peace through weakness, a peace through concession, but peace through strength. And we got 4 peace treaties in 4 months with 4 Arab states, the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Morocco, and the Sudan. And I would like to include the others, especially Saudi Arabia. And I think that is possible because many of the Arab states have come to see Israel not as their enemy, but as their indispensable ally against a resurgent Iran. And I think the rise of Israel, the free market revolution that I led here, that made Israel a juggernaut of innovation and enterprise, free enterprise, the enhanced military and cyber capabilities that we developed, made many of them realize that Israel is their partner, not their enemy, but their partner in staving off Iran on the one side and giving a better life with civilian technology, unsurpassed civilian technology, to their peoples as well. I'd like to complete that circle of peace. Hold off Iran, but finish the circle of peace around us with other Arab states.
The Abraham Accords may have been the most outstanding foreign policy accomplishment of the Trump administration, in my opinion. Give us your thoughts on the benefit of this accord to Israel and the Arab nations.
I think it's just realized the dream that I had, the vision I had of a warm peace, not a grudging peace, not a cold peace, not just non-belligerence, but a peace between people. So hundreds of thousands of Israelis have already flown over the skies of Saudi Arabia to reach the Gulf. They embrace their Arab colleagues. Entrepreneurs, Arab and Israeli entrepreneurs, are doing joint ventures in the billions. It is a wonder to see. People did not believe this, but I said, look, everybody said, no, you got to have a peace deal with the Palestinians first, which meant no peace at all because the Palestinians don't want a state next to Israel. They want a state instead of Israel. They don't want peace with Israel. They want a peace without Israel. So as long as they held the veto power on having further peace treaties with other Arab states, the 1% of the Arab world, which is the Palestinians, roughly 1 or 2%, were basically wagging the tail of rejectionism on the other 98%. And I thought, that's wrong. I'm going to go to the Arab states, and I'm not going to wait for the Palestinians to rescind their veto. And once we did that, once we got everybody lined up with that, peace followed. It took us 72 years to have 2 peace treaties with Arab states, with Egypt and with Jordan. It took us 4 months with a lot of hard work and a lot of secret diplomacy before it. 4 months to have 4 peace treaties with 4 Arab states. So more will come if we continue the policy of peace through strength. And the other thing is, we could see that when an American president and an Israeli prime minister work together in tandem to get peace through strength, you actually get both. You get peace, and we're both much stronger.
Yes. Mr. Prime Minister, there's a memory that I have in my mind. I was sitting in the audience on March 3rd, 2015, at 11 a.m. to listen to your historic speech to the joint sessions of the Congress in Washington. That building was packed. You walked down the aisle to a thunderous applause that lasted from the moment you entered the room. You stood behind the podium in a Churchillian moment. None who were there will ever forget that. Your speech was a masterpiece. What are your thoughts about this historic day when literally the whole world was listening to every word you said?
Well, I can tell you that I thought long and hard before I decided to accept the invitation to a joint session of Congress, because I was doing something unprecedented. I was challenging the president of our great ally, the United States. I didn't do it lightly, but I felt that my country's very survival was being challenged by this horrible Iran deal. So I decided to go there. You may not know this, John, because you were in the audience, but the night before, I had a miserable time because I came to work on my speech, the most important speech of my life, and I had a sinus condition, and I overdosed on nose drops, you know. And I was trying to practice my lines, and I choked in mid-sentence, every mid-sentence. And Sarah, my wife, was trying to help me. They were giving me bowls of hot water, you know, with steam. The paramedic who accompanies the Prime Minister of Israel gave me his medicine. Nothing worked. And I was just absolutely flabbergasted. And I said to Sarah, I can't believe this is happening to me. She said, no, don't worry, just go to sleep. It'll clear by morning. But it didn't. In fact, I slept nothing, not a wink. I get up in the morning and I say, all right, the hell with it. Sorry, oh well, whatever. Okay, I shave, I shower, I have to go. And, you know, I'm wiping my nose as the limousine makes its way to Capitol Hill. And I don't know, through divine intervention, miracle of miracles, my sinuses cleared as I see the Capitol building. And I enter the speaker's office, all smiles, because I know that I can now go at it. And in fact, I was very heartened by the fact that there was a very strong response, by the way, bipartisan response, which I appreciated. And I closed the speech with these words. I actually got them here, and if you don't mind, I'll read them. I said, facing me right up in the gallery, overlooking all of us in this chamber, is the image of Moses, who led our people from slavery to the gates of the promised land. Moses gave the people of Israel resolve for thousands of years. I leave you with this message today. Be strong and resolute, neither fear nor dread them. And I said, my friends, may Israel and America always stand together, strong and resolute. May we neither fear nor dread the challenges ahead. May we face the future with confidence, strength, and hope. May God bless the state of Israel, and may God bless the United States of America. That's how I felt.
Wow. I will tell you that it was a thunderous applause, and at that moment in time, the free world was listening to a vision that has led Israel to great peace and prosperity. Can you tell us about your visit with Pope John Paul II when he came to Jerusalem and he went to the Western Wall March 26, 2015, to pray a prayer of repentance for those who were responsible for the Holocaust. That was a historic moment, especially in the religious world. Your thoughts?
Well, you're quite right. It was a momentous occasion. I'd met the Pope earlier. I visited him in the Vatican, and my wife Sarah and I, walked on this long hall, long corridor, and there at the other end of it was Pope John Paul. He was, although he was already beginning to be bent with age, he stood proud and tall spiritually. And when he saw Sarah, he uttered one word. He said, Polska. He said, you look like a Polish girl. And she said, yeah, well, my father was born in Poland. And he looked at us and he said, you're so young and already you're leading the Jewish people. And then he said something that I'll never forget. He said, echoing what he would later say at the Western Wall, he said, the Jewish people, you are our older brothers. As you know, the origin of Christianity was obviously from Judaism, and I'm well familiar, obviously, with these origins. So I found it extremely moving, and I think he was one of the people who continued, and several popes did this as well, including the most recent popes, to continue the reconciliation of Jews and Christians over the difficult centuries that we had. And I must say, I think today we have no greater friends in the world than believing Christians. They have given me, as the Prime Minister of Israel, enormous support. They've given the Jewish state, our battle for our life in our ancient homeland, in the land of Israel, tremendous support. And I find that absolutely heartwarming and encouraging. Not only in the United States, there are believing Christians, as you know, in Nigeria, in Korea, in Scandinavia, and so many other places that I think I'm just very moved by people who understand that the story of Israel is the realization of biblical prophecy, of the ingathering of the exiles, of the rebirth of the Jewish people, the rebirth of Jerusalem, and I find, and the Temple Mount, obviously, I found that in many ways encapsulating the main purpose of our history, because we are a people with a purpose. And that purpose, I think, serves as a parable for all humanity. Because if the Jewish people can overcome the worst odds in history, the worst horrors that history has inflicted on any people, on any nation, then there's hope for all of us. There's hope for redemption for all of us.
Thank you, sir. You mentioned about the support of Christians and support of Israel. What's your feeling about recently Australia announced that they would not recognize Jerusalem as Israel's eternal capital? Give us your response to that.
It's an absurdity. Jerusalem has been our capital for 3,000 years from the time that King David proclaimed it as such, and it is the eternal and united capital of Israel. Whether Australia's backtracked from truth and backtracked from integrity, I hope they'll make their way back. But for me, it doesn't make a difference. We're there. I appreciated the fact that President Trump recognized Jerusalem as Israel's capital, moved the embassy there, and I assure you that ultimately many, many other nations will follow the American example, and quite a few have. Despite the setback, I think the future for Israel and our capital, Jerusalem, looks bright because we're strong. We're strong in spirit. We're strong in the economy, in our military, in our foreign relations. Israel is no longer a pariah state. Israel is a power among the nations, but it is fueled by a miracle of faith and perseverance. And without faith and perseverance, we wouldn't be there. I write about that in my book, but I think also that all of your audience who's looking for an understanding of our history and our common Judeo-Christian roots, but more importantly, even the meaning of a life of purpose, I think they might glean useful insights from my story, which is really intertwined with the story of the state of Israel.
To our viewing audience, I have read this book titled Bibi from cover to cover. It's a must read for those of you who love Israel and are defenders of Zion. It's a walk through history by the man who created history. It covers his family, the Six-Day War, the Entebbe raid, his life as an ambassador and prime minister, the battle for Jerusalem, his efforts to block Iran's path to nuclear weapons, his appreciation of the evangelical community and Christians United for Israel for our support of the Jewish people and the state of Israel. This book is now available in bookstores all over America. I urge you to get your copy today. In conclusion, Mr. Prime Minister, your race is not over, but to this day, what would you say is the most gratifying moment in your rich political life? What would that be?
I think it would be the establishment of the 4 peace treaties, peace from strength, with 4 Arab countries. And I would say that it is also the fact that I was standing there in the White House balcony looking at my wife and my 2 boys who have shared my odyssey. Political life in Israel is not a gentleman's sport. It's not a genteel sport. It's not for the faint-hearted. And my wife Sarah sacrificed her finest youth years, my boys the innocence of childhood, and they've stood by me in the worst of times, at all times. The fact that I had that loving family, the fact that so many millions of supporters around the world have seen that my struggle was their struggle, the fact that so many never lost the sense of wonder at the realization of the ingathering of the exiles and the rebirth of the Jewish state, I find that illuminating and gratifying. And I wake up to this wonder every day. I never forget that. I never forget from where we came, and that's why I never forget where we're going, to secure our future for generations to come.
Mr. Prime Minister, I thank you for being with us today. God bless you for your many accomplishments as the leader of Israel and the free world. And we pray God's blessings on you every day, all the rest of your life. God bless you and be with you.
And God bless you, John. Thank you and all your listeners. Pastor Hagee, you've been an extraordinary friend. Thank you.
Thank you, and God bless you, sir.
Thank you.